On this Veterans Day, we are so pleased to have in studio with us our friend Stephen Tryon. He is the author of Accountability Citizenship right here, and he also served in our United States Army for 21 years, has done a lot for our country. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Tryon. Great to have you here, and obviously, and of course, being at the top of our minds today, thank you for your service and for what you've done
Chelsea,
for our
thank
country.
you. Thank you so much, and you know, I want to thank veterans everywhere, but it's terrific that you have a program and that takes the moment out to thank our veterans. You know, a lot of veterans are very humble about their service, and I met a woman from the Army who was a veteran of Iraq, and she said to me, well, I was just a truck driver. And I said, you know, the whole target of the enemy during the Iraq War was to go after trucks. You know, so a lot of times you'll find veterans who are very humble about their service, and I like to tell veterans that they should never diminish the fact that they chose to serve, because it's really the choice of being in service that we honor today. We honor all of the men and women who've chosen to step up and serve under whatever conditions of service that they were called upon to perform their duty. We honor those people who have stepped up to do that. So thanks for giving us the chance to talk about that today.
Absolutely, and I'm so excited to share your experiences with our viewers this morning and talk a little bit about what we can do to give back to our veterans and to those who have served our country. So to begin things, military service requires a level of sacrifice and on a scale of such intensity that I don't think not all of us understand, especially those who do not have a family member who has served.
Well, it's certainly not common, the level of sacrifice and the intensity of sacrifice that people experience in the military. You know, I like to say that you know, our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, you know, they volunteer to be cold, wet, hungry, tired, and scared. And they don't have a lot of control over the conditions. Again, once they make that choice to serve, you don't have a lot of control over the conditions, what you're going to be called upon to do. So that's a special choice.
Absolutely, and as being part of a family who had a very strong core value of giving back to their country, you had experiences as a child and seeing family members serve. Share some of those experiences.
Well, that's right. You know, my dad was a soldier. He enlisted in 1937 and was commissioned on the battlefield at the Battle of the Bulge in World War II. And that really, in my book, I talk about how I feel like I'm a product of the American dream, because he went from being a poor boy coming out of the Depression, and because he earned his officership on the battlefield. Really, our family had great opportunities, and I remember as a young boy, while my father was stationed in Germany during the Cold War. Of course, we were very concerned about the Soviet Union invading Western Europe at that time, and that's why we had a lot of service members in Europe, and my family was there. And I remember listening on the radio. My oldest brother had been deployed to Vietnam on a destroyer named the USS O'Brien, and I remember sitting around our dinner table and listening to Armed Forces radio. And I was 5 or 6 years old, and the announcer all of a sudden said that you know, the USS O'Brien had been hit by shore batteries off the coast of North Vietnam. But I remember even as a 5 or 6 year old, I remember knowing my brother was on that ship.
And what did you guys find out, like, in that process? I mean, you were such a young, little child, but still that memory is just ingrained in your experience, and you've been able to draw from that. But we do have to share what did happen. What did you find out?
You know, my dad immediately got on the phone with the Pentagon, of course, and we spent several hours trying to sort out. There were casualties that had been reported in the radio report, but my brother was safe. So, you know, that wound up being a good news story for our family, but you know, for some families it wasn't. There were people killed and injured there, and as there are in a lot of different scenarios, certainly in combat. And we have to thank our veterans of today who volunteer to serve in combat, and they know going in that they're volunteering to serve in combat. But veterans of all generations and all ages who've been drafted and who've accepted that choice and who've stepped up to serve, whether they're under conditions of war or peace. You know, again, I come back to the point that I made earlier. You don't really know. And in my own experience, I shared with you earlier that my first assignment was in the Republic of Korea. and they volunteered to serve at a place called Panmunjom with the United Nations Command Joint Security Force. And of course, the Korean War ended in 1953 in the sense of active hostilities, but there was never a peace treaty signed. It was a truce. And when I was there in 1984, I went to this unit. In 1976, there had been a big fight, and 2 American officers were killed by the North Koreans with axes in a very brutal attack at this particular location. But in 1984, the day after Thanksgiving, a Soviet student defected from the North Korean side to the South Korean side, and the North Koreans chased him immediately and began shooting at him and at the Joint Security Force company or platoon that was deployed there. And my platoon was Quick Reaction Force. So we were called into that fight. It was a short, sharp exchange. You know, I think we killed 4 North Koreans, and we lost 1 killed from our side and 1 wounded from our side. And then, you know, the next day, of course, you're on heightened tensions, and there's a lot of diplomacy going on to settle that out. Eventually, there's a ceasefire put in place immediately after that, after we had secured the defector. But that's the kind of thing that our men and women in uniform put up with, or accept, if you will. They accept the possibility of that happening wherever and whenever they're serving. You know, military service is just inherently dangerous. Even when you're doing training, it's a dangerous business.
And you've come from such a long tradition of serving our country. What can all of us, not just those who come from military families, but those of us who may not have had that direct experience, what can we do to really give back to our veterans and to say thank you for what you are doing?
Well, you know, Chelsea, the thing I like to say most importantly is, of course, when you know a veteran and you see a veteran or you see somebody in uniform, thanking them is a direct way of doing that, and that's important. I'm very gratified that this generation of veterans seems to be getting a lot of accolades and thanks, the appropriate thanks that they should be getting as they come back from the war zones where they've been serving and from other places overseas. But I'd like to say really the most important thing we can all do as citizens, and that we all have to do as citizens, is we have to participate in our processes of voting as citizens. We have to participate. You know, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. And once they volunteer to serve, when constitutional processes dictate that we're going to send young American men and women into harm's way, it's the duty of those young American men and women to go. It's not they're not allowed to question the constitutional processes. Their duty is to go. So it's incumbent on all of us as citizens to make sure that those constitutional processes are working right. And we only have a conscience as a country. We only have the values that we treasure as a people when we participate. You know, and I like to call out that example of that young Soviet who defected in 1984, and that it's a small thing. You know, some professional soldiers would call the small change of professional soldiering, a small firefight like that. But it's a microcosm of really what the American military stands for, and that is that we protect the underdog, we protect the oppressed, we protect liberty. And that's true as long as all of us are ensuring our constitutional processes reflect our values.
Stephen Tryon, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. As usual, I wish we had more time. We'll bring you on again, certainly. Thank you once again for your service, for your experiences, and for being willing to share those with our viewers. We appreciate it. Remember, Accountability Citizenship, you can get that online at Amazon, right?
That's overstock.com.
Or Overstock, excuse me. You can find it there as well.
Accountability Citizenship. At Amazon too.
I've seen it there. That's why I said it. So, all right, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. We're going to share with you opening day at Solitude.
Thank you.